Today I'll be reporting in on the 2024 kidding season for our commercial meat goat herd. I've been crunching the numbers and I'm going to share them with you, along with how they're calculated and why we do it the way we do. I'm also giving quite a bit of detail on our management decisions, production goals, and lots of explanations on terminology related to livestock. Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goatwise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock. Hey friend, do you want to hang out with like-minded folks who are also interested in raising their own livestock and seeking self-sufficiency? Inside the free Raising Goats and Homestead Livestock community, you'll get tips on raising goats and other livestock and ideas to increase your self-sufficiency. Join now at bit.ly/getgoatwisecommunity. You can also become an insider and get weekly emails from me with the latest podcast episode, tips on raising goats and other livestock, real-life information about self-sufficiency and living off-grid, and early bird access to special offers. Sign up at bit.ly/getgoatwiseinsider. Here's what's happening on the ranch. The goats are growing fast, and it's been really interesting to watch their grazing habits now that they can travel further throughout the day and eat as much as they want. We had reached a point with our numbers that we couldn't feasibly move enough electric netting every day to get a good fill on everything and not graze some areas a little harder than we'd like to. This is the best arrangement at this point, and we'll be monitoring the range to see the impact of what we're doing and then adjust as needed. The river is down now, and Stacy and Sage got the river crossings put up today so our animals stay on our side of the fence and the neighbors' animals stay on theirs. Stacy came up with a way to use electric tape to fence our river crossings, and I think it's brilliant. No panels stuck out in the river to wash away or collect debris and cause erosion next year when the runoff comes. It's affordable and effective. 4-H projects are taking up most of our time with less than 3 weeks until fair. Now is when the kids really get out and start talking to potential supporters and tell them what we have to offer. All right, on to today's topic, the commercial meat goat kidding report. These numbers do not include the show goat herd or the dairy does, so numbers I've mentioned in previous episodes sometimes won't match what we're talking about today. The commercial meat goats were due to start kidding June 2nd based on 150-day gestation. We had some early kids in March due to an unbanded buck kid last fall. It's the first time that's happened here and a little bit embarrassing to admit. But on the bright side, we know our buck kids are fast maturing and fertile. Interestingly, the does that were bred in October and kidded in March all had singles. This supports our theory that fertility increases when the day length is shorter. The numbers from these early kidding does and their kids is included in the whole herd data. In case you're new to livestock, I want to explain a phrase that we use a lot, does exposed to breeding. This actually comes from our cattle background, but we use it in our calculations rather than just using the number of does that kid. We use all the does that were in with a buck. And the reason why is because it's more fair and it's a more accurate representation of what's going on and includes the impact of the does that didn't settle. And what that means, when they didn't settle, it means they didn't breed up. So here we go. We had 73 does exposed to breeding. 33 of those were Boer does, that's B-O-E-R, those originated from South Africa, and 40 Spanish does. Of those does, 38 were first-timers. That's 52%. Why is this important? First-time does are more likely to have single kids, dystocia, which is a difficult birth, and mothering problems. Typically, we would expect to have 15 to 20% first-time does as we replace older does that are culled from the herd and any death loss in the older does. So, having more than double the number of first-time does has the potential to really affect the numbers. Why do we have so many first-time does this year? We bought 40 Spanish doe kids in 2022 from Smoke Ridge Goats in Montana. We exposed them to a buck last year to see if they were ready to breed up and kid as yearlings, and only 6 settled, which was fine. Those that kidded last year are counted in the mature doe numbers. We didn't have any yearling does due to kid this year. After several years of breeding does to kid as yearlings, we've decided to go a different route. I'll talk about this more in a future episode, but for today, just know that none of our replacement does were in with a buck, so they are not included in any calculations here related to breeding or kidding. Of the 73 does exposed to breeding, 1 aborted, 8 kidded early in March, 60 kidded in June, and 4 were open. That means they didn't conceive or breed up in rancher terms. 2 of those were older does and 2 were young does. Officially, kidding started a couple days early on May 31st with a bang. We had 7 does, having a total of 14 kids that day. The last doe kidded on June 21st, 19 days after the estimated due date. Heat cycle is 21 days in goats, so everything was bred in the first heat, which is great news for the fertility of our does and the consistency of our kid crop. The tighter our kidding season is, the more consistent the kids will be when we go to sell them. We had 26 does that had single births, so they had singletons. We had 38 does that had twins and 5 that had triplets. The total number of kids born was 117. What time of day did they kid? There's a lot of research in cattle that talks about feeding in the evening to influence calving for daytime calves. The other part of that same research shows that a cow will calve at around the same time every year. So if she calves at 1 a.m. her first year, she'll probably do the same throughout her life. We tried the late day feeding with our show herd several years ago, and it seemed to work 1 year, but not after that. I'm not going to say that research is no good or bad. A lot of cattle people have great success with night feeding. I will say that other factors are involved, and maybe it just doesn't apply to goats. But what we've found is that the less we disrupt the goats in the evening and at night, the more they tend to kid during daylight hours. The reason for this is instinct and nature. For the best chance at survival, does need to kid during daylight hours and have enough time to get their kids up and going before sunset. So, we don't night check anymore. At all. We let them be goats and accept that we may have some loss because of that decision. For the past 2 years, we've not done a single night check unless the guard dogs are going crazy, which indicates a predator, and then we'll go see what's going on. Last year, when we quit doing night checks, we had 1 doe kid in the night, and that was early morning, probably between 4 and 5 a.m. We weren't checking until 5 a.m., but based on the way the kids looked, they hadn't been born very long. This year, I wrote down birth times on everything I could, and here are the numbers. 100% kidded in daylight hours, which is 5 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. here in June. 70% of does kidded between 5 a.m. and 2 p.m., with the remaining 30% kidding between 2 p.m. and 9 p.m. Why does this matter? First, kids that are born during the day have a better survival rate. Second, ranchers that aren't up every 2 hours checking on goats have a better survival rate. I'm only joking a little. It's hard to be on the top of your game, caring for animals when you're living on disrupted sleep, maybe 4 total hours per night for a month or 2. We're better ranchers than humans when we get a reasonable amount of sleep. Assists. This is when we help the doe get the kid or kids out. Reasons for assists? The kid is too big, the doe is too small, but most often it's malpresentation. The baby is not in the diver position. This isn't as big a deal in goats compared to cattle, and it's usually first-time does that need help. Older does can have them breech or other presentations on their own. Most of the time, we don't even know the kid was not normal presentation, because they have them on their own and get them up and going before we ever see them. We had a total of 3 assists this year. All of them were first-time does, which is to be expected. One of those kids didn't survive. Death loss. I read recently that average non-predator death loss in kids is 15%. I wish I would have written down that source for reference, but I didn't. Anyway, here's our death loss. 1 died from a difficult birth, malpresentation. The doe was very small, and the kid came ears first. Basically, the top of its head was coming first. So we had to push it back in and represent it. We did get it out, but it didn't make it. 1 died from suffocation in the birth sac. It was a triplet, and the doe didn't get the sac off its head fast enough. 1 died from poor mothering. This one's a little more difficult to assign a cause. We were away from the ranch doing family pictures, and 2 does kidded next to each other. 1 doe claimed a twin from the other doe. We got it sorted out and put the doe with her stolen kid in the barn to mother up. They appeared to be doing well, but she never fully accepted her own kid after it had suckled another doe. In hindsight, we should have either let the claiming doe raise the kid or pulled it off and bottle raised it. I didn't keep a close enough eye on them, and when I found the rejected kid several days after we'd turned them out, he was in bad shape. I did my best, but he didn't make it. Moral of the story: never schedule family pictures during kidding season. We lost 1 kid to scours. 4 kids died from the heat. When they're only a few days old, the heat is hard on them. We had some pretty high temperatures during kidding, and it cost us 4 kids. 4 kids were overfed and died as a result. This is not overeating disease as we normally know it. These kids were only 24 to 48 hours old. Their dams were older does who fed 1 kid like it was all of their kids. These kids were literally sloshy with bulging bellies so full of milk it killed them. I've only seen this once before in a doe that was a massive milk producer, so we'll definitely be looking closely at these does to see if we want to keep them in the herd. Up to this point, all of them have raised kids for us every year or they wouldn't be here, so I'm not rushing to make a decision and I want to research this a little more. We've lost a total of 12 kids up to this point, so that's 10.3% death loss. With an industry average of 15% non-predator death loss, I'll take that. The easiest number of all is our predator death loss, which is 0, thanks to our livestock guardian dogs and good night trap fences. The final number that's really important is percent kid crop weaned. This is calculated using the number of live kids at weaning divided by the number of does exposed to breeding, not just the number of does that kidded like I talked about before. So any open does will really affect the numbers, but it's a true reflection of the productivity of our herd. It'll be a few months before we actually wean them all, so today I'll give a preliminary number for kid crop and then I'll recalculate at weaning if we have any more death loss. We'd like to reach 125% for the first-time does and 175% for mature does. I know that's a bit lofty, but we can dream. Overall, we'd like to wean 150% kid crop. This is a lot of numbers, so hang in there. The mature Bordeaux, 141% kid crop. First-time Bordeaux, 133% kid crop. Mature Spanish, 188%. First-time Spanish, 138%. All the Boers together, 139%. And all the Spanish together, 148%. All the mature does hit 151%, and all the first-time does did 137%. So overall, with all the goats, both breeds, 144% kid crop. We didn't quite hit our goal with the mature does, so I'll be combing through the historical data to decide who stays and who goes this year. The first-time does did a great job, though. We're working on raising top-notch breeding stock to help others get going in meat goats, and keeping track of all these numbers is critical to our success. I'm confident we're on the right track based on the performance of the young does. We'll be selling a handful of bucks and quite a few does as breeding stock, and about 50 goats for meat this fall. And we've just opened the wait list, so if you're interested in breeding stock or meat goats, send me an email. And remember to click on over and join the community and email list. All those links are in the show notes. I hope this episode gave you some insight into our kidding season, how the numbers are calculated, and some things to think about when recording data for your own herd. Hey there, thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.